Hey, this is Nick Laughlin with Engine 11 on C-Shift. We're going to talk for just a second about incident command and kind of initial company operations on a hazmat incident. This will be part of your annual hazmat upgrade. So the good thing to know is that everything that you've already learned on fire works for hazmat, right? So all of the same priorities for a fire incident work for hazmat as well. So it's going to be life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. So life safety, let's talk about that for a minute. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to isolate the leak or isolate the incident in every direction. That's called the initial isolation distance. Now you can use the ERG to pull that off, or you can just remember that it depends on the state of matter. So if it's a solid, a liquid, or a gas. If it's a solid, you're going to be 75 feet back in every direction. If it's a liquid, you're going to be 150 feet back in every direction. And if it's a gas, you're going to be 300 feet back in every direction. That includes civilians and fire personnel. So once we establish that initial isolation distance, we're not going to be going any closer than that either. Also part of life safety is you want to make sure that you get with a property rep or somebody real quick to try to figure, hey, is everybody out of the building, right? In the instance that not everyone is out of the building, then you might have to make some hard decisions. Whether or not you approach the scene to effect a rescue or whether or not you stay back and don't. For you to think about while you're trying to make that decision, we would like to offer you the 330 rule. So way back in the day when the Department of Defense was doing chemical and biological testing, they figured out that putting the worst stuff on the earth, right, so sarin gas, that kind of thing, things designed to kill you, that in turnout gear and SCBA, you can feel comfortable operating inside of a building for 3 minutes. So if you can say, hey, I can see him from the door, I can put my turnout gear and SCBA on, I can see him, and I think that I can get in and get out in less than 3 minutes, you can feel confident that no matter what is in that side of that building, that you will be okay. Outside of a building, same kind of situation. So here you've got the bobtail or the tractor trailer rolled over and you got the guy laying out beside of it. You can feel comfortable for 30 minutes. That's their thumb rule in turnout gear and SCBA. So if you're ever in that situation where you got to decide whether or not I should do a little grab and go, just remember the 330 rule. Now the last part of life safety would be whether or not you have to decon folks, right? So in the event that you do have some folks on scene that you need to decon, I would grab the biggest water source you can find. Chances are, if they've got something on that's burning them up, by the time you get there, they will already be in the process of cleaning themselves off. They'll be either in the water fountain or under an emergency decon shower or an eye wash station or something like that, trying to get clean. If they're not, well, the good news is we do spray and water for a living, right? So we can grab the bumper line on our truck, just set the truck to idle, and change the nozzle to flush. So we're not trying to take their skin off. We just want lots of water in a small area very quickly, right? So and then you can just decon them there. Now, so the thumb rule with decon is that as long as you get that taking their clothes off of them removes about 80% of the decon, right? So what we want to make sure is we get all their clothes off of them, hit them with lots and lots and lots of water, and then once they're clean, we can head them off to EMS and they can go to the current hospital. It's really important for you to understand that EMS and the hospital don't handle dirty patients. We handle dirty patients. So if you got somebody who's extremely dirty, we're going to be the people who get dirty to clean them off. EMS should not, and certainly you should never put a dirty patient inside of an EMS unit that's going to head to the hospital, because Cone won't take them. They'll say, nope, you're good, have a nice day. All right, so let's say that everybody's out. Let's say that we've cleaned anybody who was dirty. We've taken care of the life safety aspect of our response. So the next portion of the show is incident stabilization, right? So basically not letting it get any larger than it already is. So, if in the event of a fire or something like that as part of the show, use your instinct. Yeah, put the fire out, right? One of the things that you should be concerned with at one of these facilities, though, is a heated container, right? So anytime you see fire impinging on a container, you can know that the inside of that container, the pressure is rising. And at a certain point in time, that pressure inside that container is going to push back harder than the container can push in on the pressure. and that container is going to levy, right? So real quick in the show, if we do have fire, we want to make sure that we get water on any kind of container that's being impinged on by fire. After we get water on the container that's being impinged on by fire, then we can go to work on trying to put the actual fire out, right? So that's in the event of a fire. So let's say that there's not a fire, right? So what does incident stabilization look like in that case? Well, what it looks like in that case is making sure that the product isn't leaving the property, right? So most of these chemical facilities, out here on the highway and that kind of stuff, these chemical facilities have systems that are designed to keep the product on scene. So what you want to do early in the show is find that property rep, that guy who's in charge, and make him stay with you. And you're going to ask him, hey, is this stuff getting off of your property? If it is, we need to go and start doing something right now to keep it from doing that, right? And that might look like putting a dam or a dike in a creek. That might look at putting booms out. That might look like closing a valve in the facility, right? But really quick, we want to figure out, is it getting off the property? If it's not getting off the property and it's a liquid, that makes life a little bit easy, right? So now we've got it contained inside of our, we can hang out, back up, and wait for the hazmat team to show up. In the event that it's a gas or a vapor, then what you would most likely want to do in that situation is start to look at the downwind area and start to try to figure out who is going to be affected by this and whether or not we're going to need to either evacuate them or shelter them in place. Now, here in Greensboro, we have the luxury of a hazmat team that should be on the way to you while this is happening, right? So if you do see, in the event that you do have some type of incident where you have a gas or a vapor going downwind and affecting your property, get on the radio for us and let's talk. What we can do is we can figure out where that gas or vapor is going. We can figure out what that gas or vapor is, and we can figure out how big of an area we need to evacuate. So that would be your best bet in the event that you have a gas or a vapor that's trying to get off of a property. Now, that is taken care of incident stabilization. We're not letting it get any larger, right? So we're keeping it on the property. If it were out on the highway and we have a product running down the highway, we would be trying to go into storm drains and digging ditches and stuff like that to keep it out of the storm drains, right? That's going to be our first line of defense in terms of incident stabilization, not letting it get any larger. And then last but not least, property conservation. Now for fire personnel on a hazmat incident, there's really not a lot of property conservation concerns to deal with. Once you've figured out, hey, everybody's out, once you've figured out, hey, I'm not letting it get any bigger, chances are you're not really going to have much in the way of property conservation, right? So once you've taken care of those three things, now you can kind of become part of the hazmat team's response. And the best way that you can help us prior to us arriving is by getting as much information as possible about the product and about the facility. So in terms of the information about the product, we want to know we want to grab the shipping papers, we want to grab the safety data sheet or the SDS, for that product. We want the name of the product. If you can get a UNID number, that 4-digit number for every chemical, we'd love to have that. But grab as much information as possible as about that product itself. And just gather that, because that's going to be our first question when we arrive on scene, is what are we dealing with? Second, try to grab as much information in terms of people as you can for the facility or the property that you're dealing with. Right? So if it is a truck overturned on the highway, we want to grab the driver. We want to grab the driver. We probably want to have the driver call his boss and get his boss on the phone, because we're going to need some help from him down the road. If we're going to a facility, we're going to make sure to grab the property manager, right? Or the supervisor. If we're dealing with something that has a chemist or some type of chemical in that facility, then we want to grab the chemist. We want to grab the maintenance guy, the guy that runs the facility, right? So whoever's going to be handling, whoever knows everything about all the pipes and valves and electrical systems and all that kind of good stuff. Grab those three styles of people, right? So the property rep, the property manager, the maintenance guy, and the chemist, or the guy who knows everything about the chemical. And gather those folks, because as we arrive and as we build out our hazmat response, those folks are going to be really helpful to us. Last but not least, once the hazmat response begins, chances are you're going to be asked to do something. On most of these hazmat responses, we don't have enough personnel from the hazmat team to staff the full response ourselves. So we will come to fire companies just like you and use you to staff positions like the decon line, to staff positions like the folks who are going out there to handle the containment, so building dams, building dikes, that kind of stuff. If we were doing evacuations, that you certainly would be able to help us with doing those type of evacuations. But chances are that even once we arrive, your job's not finished. We're going to have lots and lots of work for y'all to do. So there you go, down and dirty about a hazmat response. Thanks.